January 14th, 2025, 1:07 a.m. Ridgewood, Pennsylvania. Emily Carter never saw it coming. Her kidnapping was not a random act of violence. It was not a crime of opportunity. It was planned, down to the second, down to her every step. And it all began 1 year, 3 months, and 23 days ago. She had no idea that someone had been watching her, tracking her routines, studying every habit, every shortcut, every moment she was most vulnerable. The hunters had chosen their prey long before she even realized she was being hunted. It started small. A social media friend request from an account that seemed familiar. A stranger who always seemed to be at the same coffee shop she visited every Friday. A car parked across the street from her house, its headlights off, engine silently running. She never noticed, until the signs became too obvious to ignore. The anonymous texts, "You looked beautiful today." The feeling of being watched. The flickering streetlight outside her bedroom window that went out the moment she stepped outside. And then, the ultimate test. Would anyone notice if Emily Carter disappeared? For months, they had rehearsed it, testing the blind spots of the security cameras near her school, mapping out her most isolated walking routes, running drills on how fast they could grab her, how quickly they could make her vanish without a trace. Every failed attempt, every small mistake, they corrected it. And then, on the night of January 14th, they executed their plan flawlessly. Emily never stood a chance. The town of Ridgewood was asleep when the unmarked black van pulled onto Maple Street. The streetlights flickered once, just as they had planned. At 1:07 a.m., Emily walked alone, her footsteps the only sound in the silence. By 1:08 a.m., she was gone. The cameras at Harper's gas station caught only a single frame, her shadow stretching across the pavement. Then, nothing. No scream, no struggle, just vanished. But who was behind this? Why was Emily targeted? And most terrifying of all, was she still alive? In this video, we will uncover the chilling details of Emily Carter's abduction, the horrifying evidence found in the days after, and the shocking truth that police tried to keep hidden. Before we begin, if you have not already, like this video and subscribe to the channel, because what you are about to hear will change the way you see the world forever. Now let us begin. Part 2. The vanishing hour. The moment Emily Carter disappeared, the world remained unchanged. The wind still whistled through the empty streets, the streetlights still hummed, and the town of Ridgewood slept peacefully, completely unaware that something unspeakable had just taken place. For the first few hours, no one suspected a thing. No alarms blared. No urgent calls were made. It was as if Emily had been swallowed by the night itself. But deep inside that unmarked black van, speeding down a back road far away from where she had last been seen, Emily was wide awake. Her mind was a whirlwind of terror. The last thing she remembered was the sharp sting of something pressed against her face. A damp cloth, a chemical scent, the world spinning into darkness. Now, she was awake again, but she wished she wasn't. Her hands bound, her mouth gagged. Her heartbeat, wild, desperate, frantic. She could hear them, the low voices of men, the hum of the tires against the road, the quiet clicks of a phone screen. Where were they taking her? She shifted, testing the restraints around her wrists. They were tight, too tight. The van's walls were cold metal, bare except for a single dim light overhead. The air was thick, suffocating, like she was breathing in her own fear. And then, a voice. "She's awake." Emily froze. They knew. The van slowed. She heard the sound of tires crunching over gravel. A door creaked open, letting in the scent of damp earth, and something else, something metallic. Blood? The cold air bit at her skin, her bare feet sinking into the damp earth. The trees stretched endlessly in all directions, their skeletal branches twisting like grasping fingers overhead. But she was not alone. The man in charge, the one who had spoken her name so casually, so deliberately, stood just a few feet away. The dim moonlight barely touched his face, but Emily could see enough. His presence radiated something terrifyingly calculated, as if he had rehearsed this moment for years. Behind him, shadowy figures loomed. 6, maybe 7 of them. Silent, still, watching. Emily's pulse pounded in her ears. Her bound wrists ached, her mind screaming at her to run. But where? Into the endless trees. With no sense of direction, no way of knowing if escape was even possible, she needed time. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. Who are you?" she whispered through the gag. The man's lips curled into something that was not quite a smile. "You will understand soon." Then he motioned. 2 of the figures stepped forward. Emily flinched. Rough hands grabbed her arms, pulling her forward. She struggled, but it was useless. They dragged her deeper into the trees, further away from whatever faint hope she had of being found. The sound of snapping twigs and rustling leaves echoed around her. But there was something else, too. A distant hum. Low, mechanical, constant. As they walked, the darkness around them seemed unnatural, as if the trees themselves had swallowed the moonlight. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of something metallic. Then, a clearing, and in the center of that clearing stood a structure. Not a cabin, not a shed, a door, standing alone. Emily's stomach twisted. It was an old, rusted metal door frame, cemented into the ground as if it had always been there. No walls, no roof, just a door that led to nowhere. Except, the hum was coming from behind it. One of the men pulled out a key, fitting it into an unseen lock. The door creaked open, revealing a pitch-black void beyond. Emily's entire body tensed. Whatever was on the other side of that door, it was not normal. She thrashed against the grip of her captors, but it only made them tighten their hold. The man in charge stepped closer, lowering his voice so that only she could hear. "You were chosen, Emily. Do not fight it. The others never came back. But maybe you will." The others? Before she could scream, before she could demand answers, they shoved her through. Meanwhile, in Ridgewood, Detective James Callow stared at the crime scene in Emily Carter's bedroom. Something about this case was different. No forced entry, no struggle, no sign of where she had gone. But something was off. His partner, Detective Avery Holt, stood near the window, her brow furrowed. "James, look at this." She pointed to the windowsill. A small smear of dirt, not the kind you would track in from the backyard. This was forest soil. James felt a chill creep up his spine. "The nearest wooded area is miles away," he muttered. What the hell was she doing near the forest? Avery exhaled. "The better question is, who brought her there?" Something inside James told him that time was running out. They needed to find Emily before she became just another name on a missing persons report. Emily fell, or at least, it felt like she did. One moment, she was being shoved through the door. The next, she was weightless, surrounded by absolute, suffocating darkness. And then, she landed. The impact knocked the air from her lungs. A cold, hard surface pressed against her back. She gasped, coughing, her eyes adjusting to the dim, flickering light overhead. She was not in the forest anymore. She was somewhere else, somewhere below. A long, empty corridor stretched before her, lined with doors. The humming noise was louder here, vibrating through the walls. The air smelled damp, metallic, and then footsteps, slow, measured, coming closer. Emily scrambled to her feet, pressing her back against the nearest wall. Her pulse was a drum in her ears. Something was here with her, something that had been waiting. And as the shadow at the end of the corridor began to move, she realized this was only the beginning. What is this place? Who are her captors? And can Emily find a way out before it is too late? If you want to know, stay tuned. Emily's breaths were short, uneven, and laced with panic. The corridor ahead stretched into darkness, with only a few flickering lights casting weak illumination on the damp, concrete walls. The air was thick, suffocating, carrying a scent she could not quite place, rusted metal, and something decayed. She pressed her back against the wall, her mind racing. Who were these people? Why had they brought her here? And more importantly, where was here? Then, the footsteps came again. Soft, measured, growing closer. Emily's stomach twisted. She had no time to think, no time to plan. She needed to hide. Her eyes darted to the doors lining the corridor. Old, heavy steel doors with no windows. Only small rusted plates where numbers once were. Most were closed, but one, just a few feet ahead, was slightly ajar. She bolted. The cold metal sent a shiver through her skin as she pushed inside, shutting the door as quietly as possible. She was in a room, a small, dimly lit space with peeling walls and a single wooden chair in the center. The only other object in the room was a full-length mirror, standing against the far wall. Emily's pulse pounded. This did not make sense. She took a shaky step forward. Her reflection in the mirror stared back, but something was wrong. Her reflection was breathing heavier than she was. Emily froze. The air in the room grew colder. The lights overhead flickered erratically. And then, her reflection smiled. Her own face, twisted into a grin she was not making. A whisper, so close, right beside her ear. "Do not look away." Emily's breath caught in her throat. The reflection's eyes darkened, its grin widening as if something inside it was waking up. Then bang, the door burst open. Emily screamed as she was yanked backward. Two figures stood in the doorway, her captors, but they were not alone. Behind them, the man in charge, the one who had whispered to her in the forest, stepped into the room. His eyes flicked toward the mirror, and for the first time, his expression changed. A flicker of unease. "She was not supposed to see this," he murmured. One of the captors grabbed Emily's arm roughly, pulling her toward the door. Her eyes darted back to the mirror. Her reflection was still standing there, grinning. And as Emily was dragged from the room, she swore she heard it whisper, "See you soon." Meanwhile, Detective James Callow was piecing together the impossible. Emily Carter had vanished without a trace. Yet every piece of evidence they found led them deeper into something that felt designed. It had been too clean. No DNA, no forced entry, no signs of struggle, as if someone had planned every second. Then, Avery found something. "James." Her voice was tight as she handed him a small, crumpled piece of paper found beneath Emily's bed. On it, a symbol, a circle with an eye drawn inside. And below it, 3 words, hastily scrawled. "They are watching." James exhaled slowly. "This is not just a kidnapping," he murmured. "This is something bigger." Avery's fingers trembled slightly. "Then we need to move fast. Because if Emily is still alive..." She did not finish the sentence. She did not have to. They both knew that whatever had taken Emily was not planning on giving her back. Emily was thrown into another room. This one larger, colder. The floor was damp, the walls stained with something she did not want to identify. The man in charge stepped forward. "You should not have seen that mirror," he said calmly, almost disappointed. "But it does not matter now. You are already part of this." Emily shook her head, stepping back. "Part of what? What do you want from me?" The man tilted his head. "We do not want you, Emily. We need you." The way he said it made her stomach turn. Then, a new sound. A slow, metallic creak. Emily turned her head toward the far side of the room. A second door, one she had not noticed, was opening. Beyond it, darkness. Then, movement. Something inside the darkness moved. A long, slow breath echoed from within. Something was waking up. Emily's heart slammed against her ribs. Whatever was in there, it had been waiting. She tried to step back, but hands gripped her shoulders, holding her in place. The man in charge only smiled. "The others never lasted long," he murmured. "Let us see how strong you are." And then, they pushed her inside. The door slammed shut behind her. Darkness swallowed her whole. And from the depths of that darkness, something whispered her name. Who are Emily's captors? What is hiding inside this underground facility? And what does the mirror mean? Next part will reveal even more shocking truths. Emily stumbled forward, her breath ragged, her heart hammering inside her chest. The darkness was absolute. She pressed her hands against the rough walls, feeling dampness beneath her fingertips. Where was she? The sound of the heavy door locking behind her sent a wave of terror through her body. She was trapped. Then, a whisper, low, guttural, right behind her. "Emily." Her body went rigid. That voice, it was not human. A chill spread through her veins as she turned, her breath shallow. Nothing, only the endless black. But she could feel something, watching, waiting. She forced herself to move forward, her hands trembling as she reached out in the dark. She needed to find a way out. Then, her fingers brushed against something. Not a wall, not a door, something soft. Her breath hitched. The darkness shifted. And then, a hand grabbed hers. Emily screamed, jerking back. But the grip was impossibly strong. The fingers were long, ice cold, and raw. They curled around her wrist, pulling. She yanked free, scrambling backward until her back hit a wall. And then, it spoke again. "You should not be here." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, whispering through the air like it was alive. A flicker, movement in the dark. Something was getting closer. Emily's breathing turned shallow. She pressed against the cold stone, her fingers searching. There had to be a way out. Then, suddenly light. A single bulb, flickering overhead, sputtered to life. And Emily saw it. A figure stood just a few feet away. Not quite human. Its limbs were too long. Its body thin, stretched, like skin barely clinging to bone. Its face. No, there was no face. Only a hollow void where features should have been. And yet, it was looking at her. Emily's stomach twisted in pure, unfiltered terror. Then it moved. A slow, unnatural tilt of the head. It took a step forward. Emily bolted. She did not know where she was running, only that she had to get away. Meanwhile, Detective Callow stood over a table covered in files. Crime scene photos, maps, pieces of Emily's life spread before him like a puzzle with missing parts. Something was wrong with this case. Deeply wrong. Avery leaned in, flipping through the latest findings. "We traced the last place her phone pinged," she said. "It was nowhere near the route she should have taken home that night." Callow frowned. "Then where was she?" Avery hesitated. "A restricted property, abandoned for decades." Callow's gaze snapped up. "Who owns it?" Avery slid a file toward him. A company name, one that did not exist anywhere else. No records, no history, just 3 letters. Callow exhaled sharply. "This is not just a kidnapping," he muttered. "Someone wanted her there." Avery nodded. "And whatever is in that place." She hesitated, flipping to another page. "It is not the first time someone has gone missing near it." Callow's jaw tightened. They needed to move fast, because if Emily was still alive, they were running out of time. Back in the underground facility, Emily ran. Her feet pounded against the cold floor, her breath ragged. The hallway ahead was endless, twisting, turning, a maze designed to keep her trapped. The lights flickered, then died again. Darkness swallowed her whole. Then, the whisper returned. "You cannot escape." Emily's pulse spiked. She turned sharply, slamming into a door. Her hands fumbled. It was locked. Behind her, the sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate, getting closer. Emily's fingers scrambled against the door. There had to be a way out. Then, something cold touched her shoulder. Emily screamed. The door gave way. She tumbled inside, slamming it shut behind her. Panting, trembling, her back pressed against the door. Silence. For a moment, she thought, maybe she was safe. Then, she turned and froze. She was not alone. In the dim light of the room, someone was sitting in the corner, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Her stomach clenched. Hello. No answer. She took a slow step forward. The figure shifted slightly, and then, a whisper. Emily. Her blood ran cold. She knew that voice. It was her own. The figure stood up, and it had her face. Who was the other Emily? Who was behind this entire nightmare? And will Detective Callow reach her before it is too late? Like and subscribe if you want to know what happens next, because the real horror has just begun. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The figure standing before her looked exactly like her. Same face, same hair, same clothes. But something was wrong. The eyes were hollow, empty, like a reflection without a soul. Who are you? Emily whispered. The other Emily tilted its head. I am you. Emily took a slow step back, pressing against the cold door behind her. No, you are not. The doppelganger smiled, a slow, unnatural stretch of lips. Then why do I remember everything you do? It stepped forward. Your first memory, your biggest fear, your darkest secret. Emily's stomach twisted. You are lying. The thing's head twitched sharply. Am I? It took another step. Emily reached for the door handle, locked. Her pulse pounded. She had no way out. The doppelganger's voice dropped to a whisper. You should not have come here. The lights flickered. For a fraction of a second, Emily saw the truth. The thing in front of her, it was changing. Its skin warped, its mouth stretched, its fingers elongated into sharp, bony claws. The light went out. A hand shot forward. Emily dodged just in time, stumbling sideways as claws scraped against the metal door. She had to think fast. Her eyes darted across the room. A rusted cabinet, a broken table, a vent near the ceiling. Her only way out. The doppelganger moved. The dim light caught its face again. Its eyes were black now. Emily sprinted toward the vent, scrambling onto the table. The thing lunged. She barely rolled aside. Her fingers found the edge of the vent. She yanked at it, metal creaking. The screws were loose, but not loose enough. The doppelganger grabbed the table, flipping it effortlessly. Emily hit the ground hard, pain jolting through her side. The thing loomed over her. You cannot run from yourself. Its hands reached for her. Emily's fingers found a sharp piece of broken metal. She did not think. She stabbed. The thing screamed. A horrific, unnatural shriek that made the walls tremble. Dark, thick liquid oozed from the wound as it staggered back. Emily scrambled to her feet, ignoring the pain, and yanked at the vent cover with everything she had. It gave way. She hoisted herself up just as the doppelganger lunged again, its claws swiping inches from her leg. Emily pulled herself inside, crawling as fast as she could through the narrow metal tunnel. The creature's screams echoed behind her. Then, silence. She kept moving, heart hammering. Up ahead, the vent opened into another room. Emily pushed the cover aside and dropped down and froze. She was not alone, for figures stood in the room, backs turned to her. They were tall, unnaturally thin. Their heads twitched in jerky, unnatural movements. They turned. Their faces were empty. No eyes, no mouths, just smooth, featureless skin. Emily's blood went cold. The tallest one took a step toward her. Then, at the same time, they all whispered her name. Meanwhile, Detective Callow gripped the steering wheel as the car sped down the road. Avery sat beside him, scanning through the documents again. This place, it was shut down in 1999 after a classified incident. No records of what happened inside, she said. People who worked there disappeared without a trace. Callow's jaw tightened. And now Emily is in there. Avery nodded grimly. And she might not be alone. The road stretched ahead, leading straight to the abandoned facility. They were almost there. But something told Callow, whatever they were about to find, it was worse than anything they could have imagined. What are the faceless figures? Will Emily escape? And what is the secret behind this facility? Emily's breath came in short, ragged gasps as she backed against the cold metal wall. The figures stood motionless, their featureless faces tilting in unnatural angles, as if observing her. Then, Without warning, they moved. Not walking, not running, glitching. 1 second they were across the room, the next, inches away. Emily lunged for the rusted pipe on the ground and swung with all her strength, but it passed right through. No resistance, no impact. It was like trying to fight a shadow. The whispering returned, low and warped, filling the air like a distant radio signal. Not words, just noise. Emily's stomach twisted. She had to get out. Her eyes darted around the room. A door, rusted, old, but slightly ajar. She bolted for it. Slam. The door slammed shut on its own. Emily yanked the handle, but it would not budge. The whispering turned into a screech, deafening and inhuman. She turned just in time to see the shadows stretching toward her. Then boom. A section of the wall exploded inward. Dust and debris filled the room as a blinding beam of light cut through the darkness. Footsteps, voices. Emily. Through the smoke, she saw them. Detective Callow and Avery, armed and moving fast. Callow grabbed her arm. Move. The faceless figures let out a bone-chilling screech as the walls trembled, their bodies twisting unnaturally. The entire room seemed to collapse in on itself. Avery fired her gun, not at the figures, but at an overhead pipe. Steam burst from it, creating a thick, burning fog. Go. Now. They ran. Emily's mind reeled. How had Callow found her? What was this place? And what were those things? No time to think. The entire structure was falling apart. They reached a large industrial door. Avery frantically worked a keypad beside it as Callow pressed his back against the wall, gun raised. Behind them, the figures merged into the darkness. Emily's heart pounded. They were not chasing anymore. They were waiting. The screen beeped. Access granted. The door slammed open. They rushed inside and froze. The room before them was massive. Lined against the walls were metal capsules, some shattered, some still intact. Inside them, things moved. Callow scanned the eerie, glowing screens. Files flickered on an old monitor. Project Doppelganger. Before Emily could speak, a deep, guttural growl rumbled through the chamber. Something else was waking up, and this time, there would be no running. The growl echoed through the massive chamber. Callow and Avery snapped their weapons up, scanning the rows of metal capsules lining the walls. Some were shattered, glass shards glittering on the floor. Others remained sealed, dark shapes shifting inside. A monitor flickered on the far side of the room. Avery rushed to it, her fingers flying over the keys. The screen stuttered, lines of corrupted text flashing before a name appeared. Project Doppelganger. Subject. Emily Carter. Callow's grip tightened on his gun. This was planned. They took her for a reason. A sharp metallic hiss cut through the air. One of the intact capsules lurched open. A thick mist poured out, curling along the floor. The figure inside moved, slowly. A silhouette stepped forward, identical in shape and size to Emily. But something was wrong. Its head tilted unnaturally. Its movements were jerky, like an old machine struggling to function. Then it lifted its face. Emily stared back at herself, a distorted, twisted version. The features were perfect, identical, but the eyes were empty. A hollow, lifeless reflection. Callow did not hesitate. He fired. The shot rang out, hitting the figure square in the chest. It barely reacted. The wound did not bleed. It glitched. Then it moved. In a blink, it was across the room, inches from Callow. He barely had time to react before it slammed into him, throwing him across the floor. Avery shouted, unloading her clip, but the bullets did nothing. The thing kept moving, its head twitching with inhuman speed. The other capsules began to open. A low mechanical voice crackled from the speakers overhead. Replication process, unstable. Purge initiated. The ground trembled. The entire facility was shutting down. Avery grabbed Emily's wrist. We have to move. Now. They ran toward an exit at the far end of the chamber. The creatures, the copies, glitched and twitched, their distorted faces watching. Then, they chased. The hallway ahead was long and rusted, emergency lights flashing. A red countdown blinked on the walls. Facility purge, 120 seconds. Callow staggered to his feet, coughing. We are not making it out the way we came. A deep, mechanical roar shook the walls. Something massive moved in the depths of the facility. Avery skidded to a stop. We need another way. Emily's eyes snapped to an old ventilation shaft half covered in debris. There. Callow did not argue. He fired at the grates, blasting them open. Avery climbed in first, then Emily. Callow turned back, gun raised, as the creatures rushed forward. He fired the last of his bullets before diving inside. The shaft was collapsing. Metal groaned, shaking violently. Then, everything went dark. Silence. Then, a low, rhythmic beeping. Emily's eyes flickered open. She was lying on a stretcher, bright lights overhead, a blur of voices. She turned her head. Police, paramedics, FBI agents. Avery stood nearby, arms crossed, face grim. Callow was speaking to an agent, his voice low. Emily sat up, her mind spinning. Had they escaped? Then, on the far side of the room, she saw herself. Another Emily, standing perfectly still, watching. A small, unnatural smile curled on its lips. The hospital lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow over the room. Emily sat on the edge of the hospital bed, her fingers gripping the thin blanket. The events of the past few hours were a blur. Escaping the facility, the chase through the ventilation shaft, and then nothing. Avery stood near the doorway, speaking in hushed tones with a federal agent. Callow leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, his gaze fixed on the glass observation window. But Emily was staring at something else. At her, the other Emily. It stood at the far end of the room, perfectly still. No one else seemed to notice it, as if it was not really there. But she knew better. Its expression was neutral, too neutral, like it was studying her. Emily swallowed hard. "Do you see that?" she whispered. Callow turned his head slightly. "See what?" She pointed, but the moment she did, it was gone, vanished. Her chest tightened. It was right there. Avery stepped forward. "Emily, you need to rest. Whatever happened down there, A sharp knock on the door cut her off. An older man in a dark suit entered, his presence commanding the room. His ID badge read Agent Holloway. "You are lucky to be alive," he said, his tone clipped. He turned to Avery and Callow. "We have been tracking this case for years. That facility, what you saw down there, should not exist." Avery narrowed her eyes. "And yet it does." Holloway's expression did not change. "Not anymore." Emily felt a chill creep up her spine. "What does that mean?" The agent exhaled. "The facility was purged, destroyed. There is nothing left but rubble." Callow's jaw tensed. "You were saying that thing. Those things are all gone." Holloway hesitated for a fraction of a second. "As far as we can tell." Emily knew that was a lie. She had seen it. It was still here. Something was still watching. A beeping noise filled the room. The heart monitor next to her bed spiked erratically. The screen flickered, then static. The lights overhead dimmed for a split second. Emily's breath hitched. She turned sharply, scanning the room. Nothing. Holloway barely reacted. He simply closed his notebook. "We will be in touch. Do not speak to anyone about this." With that, he left. A heavy silence settled in the room. Then Callow said what they were all thinking. "He is covering something up." Avery ran a hand down her face. "Of course he is. But what?" Emily looked at the glass window again. The reflection stared back at her own face, and then, for just a split second, it smiled. But she had not. Emily did not sleep that night. She sat in her hospital bed, staring at the reflection in the glass window. She did not dare blink. Every time she did, something seemed off. A slight delay in movement, a flicker of something unfamiliar in her own eyes. By morning, Avery and Callow had returned, but the tension in the air had thickened. Agent Holloway's orders were clear. Say nothing. Move on. Forget everything. But how could they? The facility may have been destroyed, but Emily knew it was not over. And she was right. At exactly 3:17 p.m., the hospital's intercom crackled with static. The fluorescent lights flickered. The heart monitor beside her spiked wildly. Then, all at once, it stopped. Every light in the room went out. For a brief moment, the world was drenched in total darkness. Then a single emergency light flickered on, casting a dim red glow. Avery was already on her feet. "What the hell is happening?" Callow reached for his sidearm. His expression was grim. "Something is here." Emily's breath was shallow. She felt it too, a presence. And then, the intercom whispered. Not words, not a voice, but her own name. "Emily Aya." It stretched unnaturally, like a recording playing at the wrong speed. A shiver crawled down her spine. Then, footsteps, not from the hallway, from inside the room. Callow spun around, gun raised. "Show yourself." The sound stopped. Avery reached for her phone, but the screen flickered with static. No signal. Then Emily saw it. In the reflection, a figure, standing right behind them. Tall, twisted, its head tilting unnaturally to one side. She tried to speak, to warn them, but the second she opened her mouth, it moved. With a sharp, unnatural lurch forward, the emergency light flickered, and then, the glass window shattered. Avery's hands trembled as he gripped the old map, his eyes scanning the cryptic markings that seemed to lead deeper into the abandoned underground tunnels. Callow stood beside him, flashlight flickering in the damp darkness. The air was thick with decay, and every sound, every drip of water, every shifting echo, felt like a whisper from something unseen. "This is where they were keeping her," Callow muttered, his voice barely above a breath. Avery swallowed hard. The investigation had led them here, to an underground network of tunnels beneath the old steel factory, long forgotten by the city. It had taken weeks of digging through files, analyzing security footage, and interrogating people who claimed to know nothing. The deeper they searched, the more they uncovered a sinister pattern, one that pointed to something far more orchestrated than just a random kidnapping. They stepped forward cautiously, moving through the cold, suffocating air. The tunnel stretched endlessly ahead, and somewhere in the distance, there was the faint sound of chains rattling. Then a voice, faint, hoarse, barely audible. "Help me." Avery's heart pounded. It was Emily. He broke into a run, Callow close behind. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, bouncing off the damp walls. The closer they got, the more the air thickened with the scent of rust and something metallic, blood. Then they saw her. Emily was slumped in a corner, her wrists bound by thick chains that dug into her skin. She was pale, her clothes tattered, her breathing shallow. But she was alive. Avery rushed forward, fumbling to unlock the restraints. "Emily, we are here. We found you." Her eyes fluttered open, filled with a terror deeper than anything Avery had ever seen. "No, you have to go," she whispered. Callow froze. "What?" Then, the sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, coming from behind them. A shadow emerged from the darkness. They were not alone. Avery spun around, his breath hitching as the shadowed figure stepped into the dim light. A tall man, dressed in black, his face obscured by a featureless mask. In his hand, a long steel pipe, stained dark. Callow reached for his weapon, but the man moved faster. With terrifying precision, he swung the pipe, knocking the flashlight from Callow's grip, plunging them into near darkness. "Run!" Avery shouted, pulling Emily up, supporting her weak frame. She could barely stand, her body trembling with exhaustion. The masked figure lunged again. Callow dodged, tackling the attacker into the cold stone wall. The impact echoed through the tunnel, but the man barely flinched. He shoved Callow back with unnatural strength, sending him sprawling to the ground. "Go!" Callow yelled, struggling to get up. "Get her out of here." Avery did not hesitate. He gripped Emily tightly and ran, the tunnel stretching endlessly ahead. The faint emergency lights overhead flickered, casting eerie, shifting shadows. The sound of Callow fighting behind him was drowned by their own rapid footsteps. Emily gasped between breaths. "It is not just him. There are more." Avery's blood turned ice cold. Suddenly, from a side passage, two more figures stepped into view. Identical masks, silent, unmoving, blocking their only way forward. Trapped, Avery glanced behind him. Callow was still struggling, the masked attacker showing no signs of exhaustion. Ahead, two more enemies. Then, Emily whispered, "There is another way, but you will not like it." Avery looked at her, confusion and urgency battling in his mind. "What do you mean?" She pointed toward a rusted metal grate on the floor, partially broken, leading into a deeper, unseen passage beneath the tunnels. A place even the kidnappers avoided. "We have no choice," she murmured. The footsteps of the masked figures grew closer. Avery grabbed the grate, yanking it open. A foul stench rose from below. Something rotting, something old. But there was no time to think. He looked at Emily. "Jump." She hesitated, then let herself fall into the darkness. Avery followed. The last thing he heard before the grate slammed shut above them was a low, unnatural laugh. And then, silence. Avery hit the ground hard, landing on damp, uneven stone. The air was thick with decay, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the darkness. He reached out, finding Emily beside him. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded weakly, but there was no time to rest. Above them, muffled footsteps moved along the tunnel. The kidnappers had not followed. Not yet. Avery flicked on his flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, revealing a narrow corridor, its walls slick with moisture. Rusted pipes ran along the ceiling, some leaking an unknown black liquid. The air was heavy, suffocating. Emily's voice was barely audible. This place, it was not part of their plan. Avery looked at her. "Then what is down here?" She shook her head. "Something worse." A deep, resonating noise vibrated through the tunnel. Something distant, yet powerful. It did not sound human. Avery gritted his teeth. "We keep moving. No stopping." They pressed forward, stepping carefully over debris. The tunnel twisted sharply, leading into an old maintenance room. The walls were covered in strange, erratic markings, carved deep into the stone, as if by desperate hands. Emily ran her fingers over one of the markings, her face pale. Someone was trying to leave a message. Avery's flashlight flickered. Then, the temperature dropped. Behind them, a noise, a slow scraping sound. Emily grabbed Avery's arm. "We are not alone." He turned the light toward the tunnel they had just come from. Empty, but the scraping continued, growing louder. Then, In the distance, something shifted. A shadow detached itself from the darkness. Too tall, too thin, its movements unnatural. It did not walk. It glided. Avery's breath hitched. Run! They darted through the maintenance room, pushing deeper into the underground maze. The air grew thicker, the tunnels narrowing. The sound of pursuit never faded. It stayed close, just beyond the light. Then, up ahead, a ladder, rusted, ancient, but leading upward. Avery did not hesitate. He grabbed Emily, pushing her up first. Climb. She moved quickly, desperation giving her strength. Avery followed, his fingers slipping on the damp rungs. Below, the thing had reached the base of the ladder. It did not look up. It did not need to. The air around them grew heavy with something unseen, something pressing against Avery's mind. His vision blurred. Emily reached the top, shoving open the rusted hatch. Moonlight spilled through. A way out. Avery climbed faster, every muscle burning. Just as he reached the top, something cold wrapped around his ankle. A grip, not human. Emily grabbed his arm, yanking him upward with all her strength. Avery kicked, breaking free, and scrambled through the hatch. They collapsed onto wet grass. Open air, stars above. The hatch slammed shut on its own. The night was silent, too silent. Emily turned to Avery, her voice barely a whisper. We were never supposed to leave. From the darkness of the trees, a figure stood watching them. Not one of the kidnappers, something else, and it was waiting. Avery and Emily lay in the wet grass, their breath ragged. The night was too still. No wind, no rustling leaves, only silence. And the figure watching them from the trees. Avery's fingers tightened around the flashlight. Slowly, he lifted it, the beam cutting through the darkness. The figure did not move. It was tall, unnaturally so, with limbs too long and a face obscured by the shadows. But the eyes, they reflected the light, glowing like two distant lanterns in the dark. Emily whispered, "That is not one of them." Avery's mind raced. If this was not one of the kidnappers, then what was it? Then, the figure tilted its head. A shiver ran through Avery's spine. It took a step forward. The moment its foot touched the ground, a low, guttural noise rumbled through the air, not from the figure, but from the woods themselves. Like the earth was growling. Avery grabbed Emily's wrist. Run. They bolted. The forest stretched endlessly, the trees towering above like prison bars. The ground beneath them was uneven, covered in roots that clawed at their ankles. But the footsteps behind them never wavered. No matter how fast they ran, the figure followed. Not running, just moving. Effortless, silent. Emily gasped. Where are we running to? Avery had no answer. They had escaped one nightmare, only to run into another. Then, ahead, a flickering light. Avery's heart leaped. A road. They burst through the trees onto cracked pavement. An old road, barely maintained, stretching into the distance. And up ahead, headlights. A vehicle. Emily waved frantically, screaming. The car slowed, its high beams cutting through the fog. Avery turned back. The figure was gone. The car came to a stop. The driver rolled down the window. A middle-aged man, his face lined with concern. What the hell are you two doing out here? Avery panted. Please, just take us into town. Anywhere. The man hesitated, then nodded. Get in. They scrambled inside, locking the doors behind them. The engine rumbled as the car pulled away. Avery exhaled, running a hand through his damp hair. We need to call the police. Now. Emily's phone was dead. Avery's screen was cracked. The driver frowned. Police? What is going on? Before Avery could answer, the man adjusted his rearview mirror. His expression changed. His knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. Avery followed his gaze to the reflection. Something was sitting in the back seat. Something that was not them. And it was smiling. The car's interior was suffocatingly silent. Avery's throat went dry as he stared at the rearview mirror. Something was there. A shape, shadowy, hunched and grinning. Teeth too white. Eyes too hollow. Emily, frozen beside him, let out a whisper. Drive. The driver slammed his foot on the gas. The car lurched forward, tires screeching against the cracked pavement. Avery dared not turn around. The thing in the back seat did not move. It only watched. The air grew heavy, thick with an unnatural cold. Avery's breath misted in front of him, his heartbeat drumming in his ears. Emily gripped his wrist so tightly it hurt. Then a voice, low, amused, not human. You cannot leave. Avery flinched. The voice was inside his head. The driver gritted his teeth, eyes locked on the road. What the hell is going on? Avery swallowed. Just do not stop. Whatever happens, do not stop. The man did not argue. He pressed the gas pedal harder. The headlights carved a path through the endless dark. The road stretched on, seemingly without end. But something was wrong. Avery glanced at the speedometer. They were going 70 miles per hour. Yet outside, The trees were not moving. It was like the car was not going anywhere. Emily whimpered, "Avery, look." He turned his head slowly. The thing in the back seat was no longer sitting. It was crawling forward, limbs contorting, face stretching, teeth grinning wider than humanly possible. The driver cursed, swerving violently. What the? The car spun out of control. A blur of trees. A jarring impact. Then, blackness. Avery woke to the sound of sirens. Bright lights flashed in the distance. A deep voice spoke above him. Urgent, commanding. "Stay with me, kid. Can you hear me?" A police officer. His badge glinted in the glow of emergency lights. Avery's head throbbed. His body ached. He forced himself to sit up. The wrecked car was a few feet away, its front end crumpled against a tree. The driver was being loaded onto a stretcher, groaning in pain. Emily, panic surged through him. He turned wildly. There she was, sitting on the ground, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale but alive. She met his eyes. Avery, was it real? Before he could answer, another officer approached, grim-faced. "You kids are lucky to be alive." Avery swallowed. His throat was raw. "What happened?" The officer hesitated. Then he said something that sent a chill through Avery's bones. "When we arrived, the car was empty." Avery blinked. "What?" The officer nodded toward the vehicle. Nobody was in the back seat. Avery's blood ran cold. He turned to Emily, searching her face. She was just as pale as he was. The thing, it had been there. They had seen it, and now it was gone. Avery's hands trembled. The police continued their investigation, questioning the driver, searching the area. But they would not find anything, because some things do not leave evidence. Some things exist outside the rules of reality. Some things never truly let you go. That night, as Avery lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, he thought he saw something in the corner of his room. A shadow, still, watching, and smiling. If you made it to the end, let me ask you this. Do you think Avery and Emily really escaped? Or did something follow them back? Like this video, subscribe, and comment below.